So I'm not going to talk about literature and art, but about culture. And for me, and I think many of you, the basic feature of a democratic culture is the participation of the citizen. And this is exactly what's lacking in the integration of Europe. The dream of democratic and united Europe was brought tangibly close through the peaceful revolutions in '89 and the implosion of the Soviet Empire. Today, 2 decades later, we have to ask ourselves whether this dream has reached its end. The financial and debt crisis have shown the institutional and political limits of the EU and the monetary union. It is not yet clear whether Europe will master this challenge. To the contrary, lack of courage is pervasive. With a view to the next election, many politicians do not dare to speak frankly. They do not want their voters to face uncomfortable truths and thus lose their trust. In this faint-hearted environment, right-wing and left-wing populists send their opportunity. They take the design flaws of the European building as a pretext to preach a withdrawal into the nation-state. It would be a bitter irony of history if the European idea, which was strong enough to bring down the Iron Curtain in '89, would lose steam during the current financial and debt crisis. We say, no, our dream of Europe is not over. By the way, I've written this part of the manifesto together with some friends, like Danny Cohn-Bendit, Ulrich Beck, Bernard Lévy, and Glucksmann. Europe does not need downsizing or winding up. Europe is not at its end, it is in the midst of a difficult transformation. The EU must be reformed from top to bottom. Europe must push ahead with further integration. The necessary convergence in the areas of budget and economic policies, as well as the necessary balance between joint liability and joint obligation, require close political cooperation. In the final analysis, this means that more sovereignty needs to be transferred from the nation-states to the Union. Stronger integration, however, can only be justified and will only be accepted if the institutions of the EU become more democratic and transparent. Integration does not mean the leveling of cultural and political diversity. Only those things should be decided on the European level that need European rules. Without the activation and participation of the European civil society, this process cannot succeed. More Europe, as we demand, is integrally connected with more democracy. The reform of the EU may not be limited to fiscal policy. The focus must be the political union in its entirety. We want to discuss these issues with committed citizens in Europe, with employees and intellectuals, teachers and students, entrepreneurs and unions. I hate the word rating agency, but you might think of something like an intellectual rating agency of the informed citizen. When, if not now, during the current crisis, is there a need for a European-wide political will? When, if not now, during a debate over questions that affect the existence and future of every single citizen, can a Europe-wide democratic public opinion develop, get involved? And let me add something. So far, the European project seems more and more divided between 2 different masters, between the experts and politicians who meet at an ever-accelerating speed on summits and hand out vaguely encouraging messages, and the recipients of those messages, the citizens. But don't get me wrong, the European citizens have as much a vital interest to promote the integration of Europe as their representatives. Indeed, the integration of Europe is and will be progressing, even if the institutions should fail to do the job. Look at the progress that is made on the level of transport, building streets, infrastructure, industrial production, exchange of knowledge, science, and education. Look at the new generation that speaks 3 or 4 languages and has as many friends in Spain, Italy, and Poland as in their native country. That takes it for granted to start or finish their studies in European cities or other than those of their homeland. How many millions of Europeans have visited the countries since the fall of the wall that were formerly hardly accessible? And why is it that the Latin Americans, Africans, Asians, Indians have a much clearer idea of what Europe is about than Europeans themselves? They see from the distance a distinction between the American brand of capitalism and the European variations of this model, which include a different idea about social welfare, healthcare, participation of the unions, and social justice. The struggle for saving the euro is not identical with the struggle to build Europe. Maybe we have to look at a Europe beyond the euro. Of course, it is a problem when the biggest profiteer of the euro, Germany, sees itself as its biggest victim. The unification of Europe is too important and too noble a project as to leave it to the destiny of an ill-constructed currency whose deficiencies are only topped by the improper instruments to save it.